Yeah, I think this weekend is gonna be another big one, another tough game. When we went there, it was a battle to the end, and we know they're gonna come here and fight. We need these 3 points. We need to continue to climb in the table, and I think the guys are excited. I'm excited to be back out there, and we know it's gonna be just a big one.
Okay, we'll go to questions now, and we'll begin with Pike Parker.
Hey, Eryk, a couple of questions. I know in other sports, you look at the standings and stuff like that, but you guys obviously don't play every day. How often do you guys look at the table? I mean, to know where you got to, how close you are to the one spot or not another spot?
Yeah, I think it's something where we've had a good run of games. I think we just wanted to see where we fall. It's not something we pay too much attention to, but we know that, we would look at it and at the end of a weekend or the start of a weekend and know that, what something like 3 points would do. Knowing that, Minnesota's 2 points ahead of us, this could be a big swing and pass them in the standings and just kind of climb up. So I think it's something we, vaguely pay attention to, not too tough or not too closely, but definitely something we keep an eye on a little bit.
Do you have a follow-up, Pike?
Yeah, I was just, actually, I wanted to ask about the formation you guys have played the last three games with having the three big guys in the back. How does that help you or change, or how's it different?
I think it gives us more flexibility. I think it's one where we knew we could play something like this early this year. We've tested it a little bit, and now it's just kind of coming into fruition. It's one where we have three, big guys in the back, and you can throw in the Reese back there too. And it's we have four really good center backs that have been really doing the job, and it kind of eases a little of the pressure, but it also gives us kind of an advantage going forward with Santiago and Claudio out wide. They're two really attack-minded players that unbalance teams in this formation and helps us unbalance it. And guys through the middle where we can all interchange, and it's a really good flexible fluidity that we have, and we've done well with it. And I think it's one we're going to continue to improve.
All right, we'll go to Kendra.
Hey, Eryk, Kennedy St. Alban here with Minnesota United. To the point about the formation change, but also your team's run of form as of late, is there anything in particular you can put your finger on the last three games versus prior to that?
No, I think it was kind of a wake-up call going to Kansas, and the way we came out, we were really disappointed with that result, and we looked ourselves in the mirror and knew that if we want to make something of the season, that we had to put in some good performances back to back, and ultimately we're not done. It's one where we're going to continue to push and know that we can climb in the standings, and knowing that once we get into the playoffs, we can continue to make a run and just kind of keep this momentum going into playoffs, and knowing it's towards the end of the year, it's the perfect time to get this run going.
We'll go to Jonathan.
Hey, Eryk, this is Jonathan Siegel from mosoccer.com. We're about, let's call it, a little under 2 weeks potentially from a pretty big roster coming out for the US and such. I'm curious if you've had any contact with Greg, just kind of your thoughts on this window, how that's been motivating you perhaps as a player, knowing what's on the horizon in November. Of course, it's a tough squad to make, but I think a lot of people are wondering, hey, what's kind of Eryk's standing in light of what could come down the road?
Yeah, I think it's one where I want to put myself in a position to, be considered to be called in, first of all, and being on the field is that number one factor. I know when we talked back in June, it was kind of, get a good run of games and get good performances back to back, and we can reevaluate the whole situation, and that's all I can do. That's all I can control, and at this point it's up to Greg to make the decision of whether I go into camp or not. And knowing that I've done a lot of things in my power to make sure I'm in this position has been something I've really kept an eye on, really focused on. Ultimately for me, I know that there's still a chance. That there's always a chance when you're kind of on the outside looking in, and I'm this is another game to continue to prove my case of trying to make that roster, and ultimately it's still my number one goal for this year. outside of, on a personal level. But I think that's just, where my mind's at is to continue to make it hard and keep, myself in the conversation.
Go ahead, Jonathan. Looks like you had a follow-up.
Yeah, there's a quick follow-up would be, it's a little bit over a year, almost to the day actually, since your knee injury. How do you feel personally? How far off or close do you think you're back to your 100% and just kind of feeling like you're in that rhythm of being the player you can be?
Yeah, I think the games against Austin, the game against Seattle was one where, I put in 2 shifts, whereas, my first 90 in a year, it was another, 85 minutes in Austin. And I think that was, getting back to that level of being able to go week in, week out, playing, significant minutes is where I felt was like the biggest, physical demand and the biggest physical benchmark I kind of had to hit. I think physically and, now it's the best I felt. I thought back in June it was the best I felt, but as time went on, you slowly get the feeling back of being ready to go, being in that, so close to not only the national team, but being able to change the game the way I was before, and being able to put those performances in, Austin and Seattle, I think was good on the mental side of it, but physically as well. And yeah, I would say I'm probably as close as I'm going to be to where I was last year.
Any more questions for Eryk before we wrap it? Yeah, let's go back to Kendra.
Hey, last one for me is just when you look at this Minnesota United team, regardless of who's available and whatnot, with Fragapane obviously being out with the yellow card accumulation and red card, what's the most dangerous aspect, or what do you guys, look at when you see this Minnesota team? What's the first thing that kind of comes to your mind as far as how you need to get the 3 points?
Yeah, I think we've it's a familiar team. Playing them last year in playoffs, we know that this is a special team. It's a team that they can change the game whenever. And for us, it's just focusing on what we can control. We know how we can go out. We know how we can play. We know how we can defend, and just kind of snuffing out any counters, anything that they have going. Is kind of being at home, playing at home. We want to be on the front foot and being able to put as much pressure on them. And I think ultimately that will cure everything. With them having players out, again, it's a talented team that they can have players step in, and it's going to continue to be a challenge for us. And it's just one that we just have to go focus on ourselves and go and put in the effort for 90 minutes.
Okay, we will wrap it with one more from Jonathan Siegel.
Awesome. Eryk, just last one for me would be, every year, I think a lot of us sit from afar and see Portland going on these runs this time of year. I know I'm not the first person to ask. I won't be the last person to ask, but what's your perspective on what clicks this time of year when maybe the weather starts to get a little bit colder? Some things start to get figured out, it seems like, from Gio and others. Of course, you guys aren't locked in. A lot of work remains, but how can you express just kind of these, frankly, stretches that you guys seem to find in a good vein of form this time of year?
I can't quite put a finger on it. I think it's one where we always ask ourselves, how are we in this position? Why are we, making these late year runs? Why aren't we doing it earlier? Like, we just, I think as a team, we just start to come together towards the end of the fall. We start to, rosters change throughout the years, guys come and go. And I think it's, once we kind of get in the rhythm and the habit of, hey, listen, this is who I'm playing with. This is, what our team is. We just kind of get these late end of the year runs that, usually change our season, and it usually leads into good things. And I think it's just one that we have to continue to try and do again this year. We were kind of in that position last year when I got hurt, of, dropping results. And, it was a bittersweet thing to see the team flourish from there. And kind of this year, it's, I think it was a wake-up call in Kansas City. And now it's, taking that into the end of this year. As you said, we're not a lock, and there's a lot of work to be done. So it's just continuing to, keep our foot on the gas.